So let's take a look at the evolving situation on the ground in Ukraine. Let's first start with the humanitarian crisis. Think of this. 10, 11 days ago, Ukrainians were in their homes, living their lives, raising their families. And now, 10, 11 days later, more than 1.5 million people have fled Ukraine and are now refugees at neighboring countries, the vast majority of them going to Poland. And Poland has welcomed them with open arms, some to Belarus, some to Slovakia, some to Hungary, some to Romania, and some to Moldova. And then, of course, there are the other European countries. But if you think about it, 1.5 million in 10 or 11 days, a country of, I think, 46 million or so, it makes you wonder what the ultimate number is going to be and what the refugee crisis will be in a lot of these European nations and perhaps elsewhere around the world. Let's go to map number 2 to show you the Russian offensive in southern Ukraine. So a lot of focus down here to the south, areas where the Russians have been. A big area of focus coming up, Odessa, the third largest city in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin clearly thinking that if he controls the Black Sea, he ultimately controls much of Ukraine. And so you see where the Russians have controlled. They are branching out to the west, to the north, and to the east as they try to expand their power and influence. They now control the Zaporizhia nuclear plant. Part of Putin's focus is controlling energy in Ukraine. And as you see, Russian forces continue to push west, and ultimately they will push north toward Kyiv to go from the south and also from the north and the east at Kyiv. So that's a look at kind of where things are at the moment. Energy. Let's talk energy. So 54% of Ukrainian energy comes from nuclear power. And so there's been a lot said about what they've been doing, the Russians, in terms of going to the various nuclear plants. You've got Chernobyl, obviously the best known in the world because of the disaster there years ago. You've also got this one, Rivne up in the northwest. You've got this one here a little bit south of there. The black specks are coal power plants. And so Putin clearly thinking that if he controls the energy sector in Ukraine, then ultimately he will have a better chance of taking the entire country. Obviously, a lot of concern when he is shelling areas near nuclear power plants that raised a great deal of alarm in the international community. And let me bring in Jillian and Ben, see if you guys have some questions or some thoughts as we look at the map here and look at some of the areas of focus at this point in this war.
It's amazing, Mike. We're starting to hear tales now, not just of Russian citizens and Ukrainian citizens taking up arms against the Russian military, but we're now starting to hear about people from other Europeans traveling across borders inside to get into Ukraine to join that effort.
Yeah, I think there's no question about that. I think a lot of Europeans have taken this very personally, seeing a big bully, Vladimir Putin, going across the border into a country which was living very peacefully, minding its own business, again, raising their families and conducting their businesses. And now Putin's basically being a bully, going in and smashing and destroying a neighboring country. And I think a lot of Europeans are looking at that, alarmed about what his ultimate goals may be, but immediately concerned about him just going across the border at will and imposing his will on the Ukrainian free-loving people.
Yeah, and you know, when you talk about the foreign fighters coming into fight here, Foreign Minister Kuleba said earlier today that at this point 20,000 have so far come, and the British government have actually said it will not be illegal for fighters to come and join the fight here, which is a pretty significant move on their part. But you look at that map, Mike, and one of the things that stands out to me is just how Putin is focused on so many of the strategic key elements here. He's taken, or is working on taking the coast to the Black Sea, on the power stations, on Kharkiv, the second largest city, which is a crucial tech hub. And you know, once he's got control of all those key hubs, and if he gets Kyiv itself, then he's in a really good negotiating position. And I think lots of people look ahead to the outcome here. Is he? Nobody knows what Putin is planning here. Is it full occupation or not? But if he can control those key strategic sites, he really has a stranglehold on the country, and he doesn't have to go the whole way if he can control those sites. So it's interesting to see him doing that and doing that quite successfully. And once he holds those, you expect him to hold on to them before pushing any further. Mike?
Strong analysis from Ben on the ground in Kyiv. Jillian, over to you.